This book called me lonely in about 18 different languages. Let's review You Found Oliver. Thank you to Pan Macmillan and to Dustin Thao. I think you were my 10,000th follower. You were up there. You were somewhere around that ballpark. But thank you for this review copy. I enjoyed reading this. Now we get to talk about it. This was so cute. There were plenty of moments where I just had to put the book down and be like, "Aw." It finally made sense to me how so many of my friends who are romance readers are themselves such hopeless romantics in the real world. Because if this is your expectation of like the modern day man, of course you're going to struggle to find him because they just don't make them like this anymore. How could they? Ben as a love interest is so cartoonishly perfect. I genuinely thought that we were going to have some sort of dark twist where we'd find out he had like bodies in the attic, or he had some like weird kink, you know, like Oliver would just be talking to him and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you know, it's a bit unusual, but I have this kink where I like to see people be skinned alive." And then I thought, oh, the book's really going to take a turn. But no, that didn't happen. That's just my own warped mind. The book is very sweet, very cute, very saccharine, like maybe to a fault. But if you like that sort of thing, you like that sort of thing. And I thought this did a very good job of executing that thing. This one is a sequel to You've Reached Sam, which is a previous book by Dustin Thao, but the connection is loose enough that you could go into this as a standalone, which is what I did. I haven't read the previous book, and I didn't really feel like I was missing anything. Now, this is the point where I'm going to point towards some vague spoilers. So if you don't want to be ruined on certain details, this is your opportunity to bounce. But I would say cozy, cute, sweet, very autumn vibes. Yeah, I don't not recommend this. It's not something I would typically read, but I liked it. And it's very readable as well. It's very breezy. But yes, the plot. So, You've Reached Sam, I presume, ends on the death of Sam. Unsure, but we go into this one and Sam is dead. And his friend Oliver is very hung up about that, rightly so. They have quite a close bond, it seems. And he still keeps sending him messages on his like old number, perhaps as like a coping mechanism. And then he mistakenly calls the number, and of course when someone dies their number gets given to someone else, so someone else picks up on the other end and starts talking to him, and this is where Oliver first meets Ben, and they form this like budding romance as they realize like Ben has read all of the messages that Oliver had sent over the last few months, sort of talking about his own mental health, and so he knew him quite intimately without having met him, which is a cute concept. Like, I could definitely see this in some sort of romantic comedy type film. Like, I don't know, there's something there with that story idea. Later on, it becomes almost like a Quantum Leap episode. I think we could have spent more time developing this storyline. So, when he meets Ben, Ben seems to be from like a different timeline. So, when he's with Ben and they're going out on dates and stuff, it takes him 6 months into the past. So in his present day reality, he's in like November and it's autumn. His friend has gone off to Copenhagen. His ex cheated on him with his former flatmate. But then when he goes back with Ben and it's April, all of those things are reversed. And his friend is there. He still has this boyfriend that he's since left because he cheated on him. So it was interesting, but it also didn't really go anywhere. Like maybe that will be explored more in a future book if there are more coming in this series. I don't know. Dustin, are you able to confirm or deny? But there was sort of like this very casual suggestion of like some speculative fiction, something a bit science fiction-y. And I wish it had leaned in just a bit more because it was fascinating as a concept, but it felt a bit unexamined. There was also such a conscious decision to not include anything remotely like spicy. Like the most heated thing that they do in this is like kiss, which sure, I'm sure there's an audience for that. But in my mind, I'm just like, these are 19-year-olds. I can remember what I was like at 19. There's a certain point like when they're in bed together, I was like, oh, okay, they're just gonna go to sleep. Sure. There was definitely opportunity for this to be saucier as well, because when I tell you Oliver, our main character, he cannot move for dick. Like, not only does he have ex-boyfriend who in the past he's still with, so he keeps coming up to him and being all intimate because they've not split up yet in that timeline. But then he's also got Ben, of course, the one that he's going on all these dates with, the one who's being really romantic. And then he goes to like this prom dance, and there's another guy there that starts talking to him. I was like, damn, Oliver, you must have some sort of lethal face card because they are flocking to you, and not mad at it. What I loved as well is that there is a philosophy teacher character because he's going to all these different classes because he's at campus. And yeah, I think in America you can pick like multiple majors or like multiple courses, and you can go to classes from different ones. Scotland does something similar, but I never got to do that because medicine is like very intense and rigorous. But I think that's how American schools work. Let me know. Like when you go to college, you get to pick like two or three different subjects. And so you go to a mix of classes. Anyways, I digress. He has this philosophy teacher. And what I loved was that her sole purpose in the story was just to give like platitudes about life. Like when Oliver is in turmoil and doesn't know how to figure out what's going on with his relationships, he visits her and she's just like, well, a box isn't always a box. She throws in something real cryptic that you're meant to untangle and be like, oh, okay, he should take this path. I get the feeling as well that this is one of his more chipper endings. Again, I know that's a spoiler. I won't tell you exactly how the book ends because, like, go read it. I would recommend. But he seems to have a reputation for writing these like devastating, tear jerking endings. So I appreciated the tonal switch of this one being a bit more pleasant, a bit more like, oh. And you could see as well, there's a point just before the ending where he's at like a crossroads, and you can sort of see creatively, like, oh, is he going to make this devastating, or is he going to be like, you know what, let's make this a happier one, let's give them a happy ending? And I guess he took the road less travelled. But those are my thoughts on You Found Oliver. I'm here for this subgenre. I would appreciate more recommendations of like cozy, queer, happy stuff. I feel like I read a lot of books where everything is terrible and there's a lot of human suffering, which, I mean, of course, but I don't mind this, when everything's nice and sweet. Sometimes that's a palate cleanser. So, yeah, here for this.